Have you ever known people who just refuse to lose, right? They just won't take no for an answer. And I don't know why, but I've been that way in my life before. In the fall of 1998, I was playing football as a freshman at Missouri Southern State College. And our football season had just ended, and we had an end-of-year meeting to turn in all our gear. And I lived in an apartment near campus. And we were there, I was there with another quarterback friend, and we were getting ready for the meeting and just hanging out. And then it came time for us to leave. And he said two fateful words that changed everything that day. He said, "Want a race?" Now, he had a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I had a 21-speed mountain bike, and poor judgment. So I had two things that I felt like I could win. And so before he could even blink, I jumped up and I ran out the door and I jumped on the bike before he was even ready, and I was off pedaling as hard as I could. Now, our paths were different, and I've got a map here of the two routes. I got to come through this grass field. I had to put it as a grass field now because they've since built over it. But I had the advantage because I have a shortcut. You can see I was in the red. He had to drive around the long way, but he had a car. So it was going to be interesting to see who was going to win. Well, I got through the field and I'm flying, absolutely flying. But then came the danger zone. It was called Newman Road. I've got a picture of the intersection here. I had to cross that road. There's 5 lanes of traffic there, and that is where our paths, our routes met again. I knew that if I slowed down and waited to see if it was safe to go, I would lose the race. So therefore, hey, trust in the Lord, right? And so I decided I'm just going to go and see what happens. And so I fly across this thing, and I'm kind of looking, and I timed it just perfect, and I shot the gaps just right. I mean, just like a champion at Frogger. I made it all the way across alive. When I made it across, I realized he wasn't there yet. I was ahead of him. I thought I had a chance, right? So I fly on down, called International Avenue, and I'm flying down there. I fly around Webster Hall. I'm on the sidewalk just weaving and bobbing around discombobulated students like a maniac. Well, I get down to Lantern Drive. Lantern Drive is a long edging sidewalk that has it's on a slight hill. That's where I really picked up speed. Okay? I got 21 speeds, 21 gears, and I'm in gear 21. If I could have shifted, I would have. I was pedaling as fast and as furious as I could, right? He had caught me. I could hear his engine right behind me revving up. He slammed the gas and was revving it up, and he was trying to catch me because we had one more turn left to go. This was the last obstacle right here. This is the moment. This right here. He had to slow down to come into the parking lot, and I knew that was my opportunity because he had to slow down, and I thought, if I can navigate this turn right here at 30 miles an hour on a bicycle, I would win. Alas, I was going so fast and so furious that when I leaned into the corner to turn, I remember thinking, this is amazing, I'm going to win, right? And I leaned in, but my momentum I was going so fast that it leaned my bike up, and I popped off the sidewalk, and I jumped the sidewalk into the parking lot. It was such a beautiful moment. Everything was quiet, and the wind was bristling through my hair, the birds were chirping, everything was peaceful for that split second. Until my wheels hit the ground in the parking lot, and there waited for me the broadside of a minivan. No brakes, 30 miles an hour. Now, when you hit another car in a car at 30 miles an hour, that's quite a jolt. But when you're on a bicycle and you just, wha-bam, slam up against this thing. I kissed this thing like I've never kissed anything in my life. I crushed the minivan, absolutely destroyed the whole side of it, destroyed my bicycle, destroyed my face, right? And my pride. Now, here's the thing. I got up, found my glasses, put them on, and I said, I won. Now, he would go on to challenge that, but have you ever known somebody that was just unwilling to lose, right? Unwilling to take no for an answer. Somebody that's just determined in life. Who do you know like that? Well, that's exactly what we get today in the Scriptures. I mean, we're in a series called Jesus' Most Confounding Statements, and this one is a good one, right? We're going to watch an outsider woman be relentless until she gets what she wants from Jesus. But along the way, Jesus says some confounding statements that don't seem to jive at first. I mean, does Jesus actually call this woman a dog and tell her to go away? Well, let's take a look. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 15. So open up your Bibles to Matthew chapter 15. If you brought your Bible, great. If not, that's fine too. You can find it up on the screen, or you can use the one in the pew in front of you. If you don't have one, steal that one. Take it home with you. But Matthew chapter 15, verse 21, it says this. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. Now, hold that in your memory, okay? We're going to come back. This is going to be an important thing. Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. And Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. All right, so Tyre and Sidon, right? Like, why? Why Tyre and Sidon? Jesus, if you read before this, you're going to find that Jesus has just had a major conflict with the Pharisees, okay? And it was bad. It was actually probably one of the worst. In fact, the next time that Jesus would see the Pharisees after this conflict, they would kill him. This is a big conflict that he has with them, all right? And so it blows up into a big deal. This region is on the Mediterranean beach. And so I've got a map up here. Look at where we're talking about here. Look at how far north and how far west that this is on the biblical map, right? He is literally going off the map right there because he is going there to get some rest, to recover. Look, Mark tells this same story in Mark chapter 7. And he says this about it. In verse 24, it says, Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it. He wasn't there to do miracles. He wasn't there to be seen. He was there to rest and to recover. He just wanted to be left alone. Now, he just had this conflict with the Pharisees. Conflict is exhausting, isn't it? I mean, you can probably remember the last time you had major conflict with somebody, right? There's probably nothing that drains the batteries more than being at odds with somebody. And when we have major conflict, we also, just like Jesus, need time to process what happened and to recover from that conflict. A dear friend of mine is a pastor in Colorado. And he's been there for years and years, and he is the best. I mean, he is awesome. But one of his staff members felt like he could do his job better and wanted his job and poisoned some leaders in the church against him and created this whole controversy and tried to get him fired and create a coup in the church. It was ugly, it was messy, it was disappointing. Of course, the rest of the church totally rejected this because they loved the pastor there, and the staff member who did this was actually fired himself. But my friend was deeply wounded by this, him and his wife. So, in the midst of all this, I sent flowers, to his house, and just a note of encouragement in there, just to try to encourage him and show him that, man, people still love you. And the flowers arrived on a Thursday whenever his small group was coming, and they were arriving and coming into his house when the doorbell rang and the flowers came, and he was hurt so deeply and just, kind of emotional that whenever he saw the flowers, he started crying. First of all, what a pansy, right? But second of all, hurt people need people. Isn't that the truth? That when you're hurt, you need people. And this is why it is so important to belong. That is why we need each other. You know that Jesus regularly withdrew. You remember that from the text, that he would regularly withdraw for prayer and rest. And this is the last time that he would withdraw for rest before the cross. Never before and never again, though, would he go this far into thoroughly Gentile territory. He never did it. Not before this and not after this. And it was a great place for him to go because the Pharisees were literally chasing him down and entering conflict with him. So he goes off the map. Why? To be left alone, to rest and recover. But as you saw, that didn't happen. He was recognized. And when this desperate mother heard of Jesus, she knew that this was her one shot to get healing for her daughter. And guys, Jesus is there to rest, but you also know that this daughter needs help this mother needs help for her daughter, and you can't blame her, can you? Listen, human nature is to elevate our problems above other people's needs. It's just what we do, right? I remember Logan and I were in Hawaii one time, and we were at this hotel pool there, and she looked over and she recognized any Office fans in here. You remember Toby from The Office, right? And so he was there. And so, why is he there? He's there to rest and relax. No, Logan said, no, he's there for me to meet him. And so she got up and she went over and introduced herself and said, hey, are you Toby from The Office? And fortunately, he was very kind to her and engaged her. But this woman needs Jesus. But it says that Logan, sorry. It says that Jesus did not answer a word. He ignored her. She's outside the house. He's inside, she's outside, and she's just yelling. Almost like obnoxiously, right? And she's just yelling inside the house for mercy. Jesus, Son of David, help me. Have mercy on me. My daughter is suffering terribly. And he ignores her. Why? Well, I think there are two possibilities, and I think both are happening. Both are true. Number one, he wants to draw out her persistence, right? You guys understand this. Jesus doesn't immediately acknowledge her. She didn't start screaming, and he's there to rest. He's there to recover. She starts screaming, and so he doesn't just, let me go take care of this, and go take care of the need. No, he's going to see, is this really a big deal? Is this really something I need to do? So he ignores her at first. Right? Parents, you've done the same thing with your kids, right? Your kids ask for stuff all the time. They are relentless, aren't they, right? But many times you don't give them a straight answer, or sometimes you don't even give them an answer at all, hoping that they'll drop it and it'll be over, right? But if they're persistent, it just kind of forces you to deal with it, right? Can I tell you how bad of a dad I was last week? Last week, I was edging the lawn, and my two boys, Atticus and Major, were outside playing on the basketball goal. And my youngest son, Major, has just a great knack for whining. He's really good at it, guys. I'm really proud of him. And so anyway, he just whines all the time, you know. And so I'm going and getting into the backyard, opening the gate, coming in, and I see Major. And a lot of times the whining comes out when they're in competition with each other, you know. Atticus is 3 years older, and he doesn't seem to understand or think it necessary to go easy on his little brother. Like, just totally annihilates him every time. Well, here comes Major. And I hate it when they bother me whenever I'm edging. I just hate it. Because, first of all, you got to turn off the edge, you got to stop it, you put it down, and then I got to dig my phone out, and I've got to push pause on the music, take my headphones off, and say, what do you want, right? It's super annoying, right? So here he comes, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, not again, you know. And so I just act like I don't see him. You know? And so here I am, I'm just edging, and here he comes, right inside the gate, and he's holding his basketball, and he's coming up, like, literally right there. And I just kind of want to nick him with the edger, you know, tell him to go away. But I didn't do that. And so, so I go, and I'm on the house side. And I literally went all the way around the entire house, ignoring him the whole time. And he just, with his ball, followed me all the way around the entire house. Now at this point, I'm like, this is hilarious. I want to see how far this goes. So then now I have to do the outside of the perimeter of the fence. So here I go. I just ignored him still yet. And I go around the whole fence. He never quit. At some point, you're like, he's going to get the hint, right? Well, not this little boy. Whose child is that? I don't know. But anyway, he didn't get the hint. So I finally get to the very end. Now I'm just laughing to myself. And I turn off the edger, push pause on the music. What do you want? And it turns out he had gashed his leg open, and we had to take him to the ER. Just kidding. He was whining about his brother. Jesus ignoring her gives her persistence a stage. Like, she is going to be seen. Is she actually persistent enough to keep going? Her persistence is on display because he's ignoring her. Now, the other possibility is this, something that you might not have thought about yet, is that he was setting up his disciples for a truth. You know, Jesus was really good at that, wasn't he? Again, where are they? Tyre and Sidon. That region was part of a whole another country, Syrian Phoenicia, outside the boundaries of Israel. It's located in what today is southern Lebanon. These were not just other towns that they never went to. These are actually enemy cities, considered enemy territory here. Morally, these people were corrupted. Idolatry was just embedded into their culture. Right? Do you remember one of the worst women in the Bible, Jezebel? Do you remember her? Right? She was from Sidon, from right here. This is where she was from. She was awful. She was a Baal worshiper and became the queen of Israel, and she brought and established the worship of Baal there, instituted a whole priesthood, and led the whole nation astray. She was from there. When your water tower on your town says home of Jezebel, you know you got a problem morally, okay? And so that's where they were. In fact, M.J. Wilkins, I know you don't care, but in his commentary, he tells us that a temple dedicated to the god of Eshmun, he was the god of healing. Isn't that interesting, right? I wonder if she went there first. I don't know. God of healing was just 3 miles outside the city there. So when when the disciples are there in this place, right, they know that this is not a place that they're comfortable in. It's not a place where good people live, right? It's not a place where you go to worship God, right? There are no temples in this town, right? And so they're uncomfortable. And so when Jesus ignores this lady, he seems to be confirming what they already thought about the people of this place, right? I mean, number one, this is a woman. okay, in their culture, this is not appropriate for this woman, no matter who she is, to be coming out and making a scene like this, screaming and hollering outside the house. It's not appropriate. And then also, she's a pagan. So, I mean, what are we doing here, right? No wonder Jesus is ignoring her in the disciples' minds. And I think this is why the text said in verse 23, it says, Jesus did not answer a word. So, right? So, his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away. She keeps crying out after us. That's why, therefore, the disciples acted this way. And send her away, what does that mean? What do they want Jesus to do, right? Do they want her just have the permission to say, hey, just get lost. It's not happening today. Or were they saying, like, just give her what she wants so that she'll go away? Either way, it's not born out of compassion, okay? And look at how Jesus answers the disciples. He's talking to the disciples here in verse 24. Look in your Bibles. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Okay? So he's almost confirming what they believe. Why would he say that, though? Why would he say, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel? Because we know that he doesn't really believe that. We don't see that. Remember in John chapter 4, whenever he was with the Samaritan woman there, do you remember that was the very first time that he announced that he was the Messiah to a woman that wasn't even a Jew, a Samaritan woman? So obviously, there's that, right? Then also, in Matthew chapter 8, whenever he heals a Roman soldier, his servant, a Roman soldier, like the enemy of all enemies, he does something for him. And then in Mark 5, remember whenever he crosses the lake into Gentile territory and heals the Gerasene demoniac of all those demons, Jesus doesn't believe that he's only there for the Jews. So why does he say that? Well, it is true that his ministry was primarily concerned for the Jews, right? I mean, that it was them first, and that's it. So if it's an issue of what's primary, then sure, there's that. But also that Jesus is in this place, and he's wondering he's trying to get his disciples to understand something bigger, right? I wonder if the disciples then they heard Jesus and say, hey, look, I'm only here for the lost sheep of Israel. That they like, okay, that's, it's almost like a wink, like, hey, yeah, I'm all, and they get it, okay, we're going to send her off. And I wonder if they turn around to go tell her to get lost, it's just not happening today. They turn around and look what happens in the text. She's in the house. She came in the house uninvited. Look at the next verse there in verse 25. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. She just walks right in the house. That's a bold move because she risks irritating the very person that she wants help from. I mean, this woman is determined and persistent. She is not going to take no for an answer. I mean, have you ever noticed just how simple persistence works? How well that it works? Whether it's you're working on a project and just persistence pays off over time, or if you're trying to recruit somebody to work for you, just not letting them go and just persistent. It just works in life, right? When I was in high school in the 90s, remember them? My dad was the president of the Booster Club. And he got it in his mind that he wanted Daryl the Moose Johnston. You remember him on the Dallas Cowboys, the star of the star fullback of the Dallas Cowboys. He wanted Daryl Johnston to come to Texhoma and be at our end of the year sports banquet. Texhoma, America, right? And so he called Daryl's agent, and of course, what happened? A big fat no, right? Negative. And so he's like, okay. He hangs up. What does he do? He calls again. And they're like, yeah, didn't we already say no? Yeah, it's still a no. Click. He calls again and again and again. And he just, like a dog on a bone, he just won't let it go. Finally, they said yes just to get him to stop calling. Daryl Johnson came to Texhoma. I got an autograph. I rode in the car with him. I'll never forget it. Persistence works, right? And here's this woman. She walks into the house. This is a WTN FAA GWR TTDD moment. Of course, you know what that is, right? That's a won't take no for an answer, gonna walk right through that door determination. And look at Jesus' words. This is a confounding statement. Does Jesus actually call this woman a dog? Look at what he says. In verse 26, he replied, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." So does he call her a dog in this moment? Well, kind of. Yes and no, right? Jews would often call Gentiles dogs, and not in a nice way, right? It was a slur. The Greek word was kaion, right? It was meant for somebody that's unclean, irreverent, and just an outsider, right? It was even the pastors would do this, the rabbis, and the Jewish writings referred to pagans as these dogs, these less than human. So even the pastors were using this slur, right? I mean, it was pretty common back then. We use it the same way today. If you call somebody a dog or a mutt or something, that has the same connotation. Although we've kind of changed it more in our culture to mean something totally different. He's got that dog in him, right? That DAWG, right? It's more of a positive thing, right? Well, Jesus did not use that word. He did not use that slur here, kaion. He used something similar, but very different in meaning. Right? He used the word kynarion, which means little dog or domesticated pet, right? This wasn't a stray dog. It was like your pet. And so, in other words, he's saying it's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the doggies. That's kind of what it would translate to. And then she used the same word. She said, "Yes, it is, Lord." She said, "Even the doggies eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table." And she doesn't seem to be offended in this moment because she doesn't have the luxury to be offended. Her need outweighed her pride. And everything up to this point was in line with what the disciples expected. They expected her to get dismissed. They expected her to get ignored. And that seems to be what's happening. But, all right, and this is such a Jesus moment. Look at the next verse. In verse 28, it says, "Then Jesus said to her, 'Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted.' And her daughter was healed at that very moment." I mean, this is just a massive shock to the disciples and probably to her. You could not pick someone with less of a chance of receiving mercy than a Phoenician Gentile woman. But here she is, standing in grace. Now, she teaches us something very powerful here. My desire to seek Jesus is directly tied to my perceived need of Jesus. My desire to seek Jesus is directly tied to my perceived need of Jesus. When you know your need, if you know that you need Jesus, you run to the one who can heal. But no perceived need, no desperate pursuit. Some people, when they pray on their knees because they know they need the Lord. But some people pray leaning back in their office chairs with their feet up on the desk. This woman was desperate. And that's what moved Jesus. And I'm convinced that if we knew our true need, we would run to Jesus every day. Maybe the most important and consequential prayer that you'll ever pray is, Lord, open my eyes to see my need. But of course, Jesus wasn't doing something just for the woman, but also for his own disciples. Because later that year, what would happen? He would leave them and leave the keys in their hands, and he would ask them and call them to go to the ends of the earth, to the insiders and the outsiders. And they needed to have a perspective shift if they were going to be able to do that. This story has incredible meaning for us today. And there is a message for you and for me. And it's just this. To the outsider, you are worthy of grace. Maybe you've been hurt by somebody who claimed to follow Jesus but acted nothing like him. The truth is that not everybody who's around Jesus understands the heart of Jesus. Even the disciples who literally walked beside him wanted to send this woman away. If you have ever felt pushed out, if you've ever felt ignored or dismissed by the church, hear this clearly. You are not saved by Christians. You are saved by Christ. And don't let a bad experience with one of Jesus' followers keep you from receiving grace from Jesus himself. We can learn from what this woman did right, and she was determined to find Jesus and to get help. Some of you mama bears can totally identify with this woman, because if your child was suffering, nothing would stop you if you knew that there was a solution out there. 12 disapproving and dismissive men stand no chance. What if you applied that same tenacity to your own pursuit of Christ? What if we all did that? What if we all applied that same persistence to helping our children find their faith in Christ? She refused to walk away even when she had every excuse to. But also to the insider. Don't underestimate the one. Sometimes the person that you least expect is the one that's most ready to receive grace. The disciples didn't see this woman's faith, but Jesus did. And not long before this encounter, what did Jesus do? He feeds 5,000 people. And the next story after this, guess what he does? He feeds 4,000 people. Right in between, Jesus meeting the needs of thousands of people is this one story sandwiched in between where he meets the need of the one. Who's your one? Who should you resume praying for? Who needs you to go the extra mile right now to give them some encouragement? Who needs a text saying that you thought of them and that you were praying for them? Who have you invited to sit with you at church 15 times, but maybe they just need one more invitation? We reach people one at a time. And Jesus reminds us, don't give up on the one. And lastly, this story says something to all of us. Don't lose sight of your need. If this woman teaches us anything, it's that desperate people seek Jesus deeply. That kind of desperation doesn't come from guilt. It comes from clarity. We forget our need, not because we're bad people, but because we're busy people. Running to practices, meetings, meeting deadlines, house repairs, and before long we just stop searching for Jesus. If your spirit feels flat, if your passion for Jesus has cooled, then ask God to open your eyes to your need again. Awareness of your need is the first spark of revival in your life. That day in Missouri when I raced my friend, I was determined. I would not accept defeat. And my disfigured face afterwards proved that. But for what? To win a race. This woman, turned out, she was a dog, right? She had that dog in her, right? But she had that same kind of determination that I had that day, but for something that actually mattered. She wasn't chasing pride. She was chasing mercy. I mean, what if we chased Jesus like that? What if we chased outsiders like that? Guys, this story begs us, this woman begs us to renew your pursuit of Jesus. Some of you guys, you know what I'm talking about because you've been there before. You know what it was like to give your whole attention to Jesus. We still need Jesus. That hasn't changed. Run to Him. Seek Him because we need Him. So no matter who you are today, if you're an outsider or an insider or you're just spiritually out of gas, chase what matters. Let me pray.